Habari Gani, Habari Ganio. Welcome back. Today is the third day of Kwanzaa. Habari Gani, your response is Ujima. Ujima. That is to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. Ujima is represented by the vibunzi, which are the ears of corn. And in every household, whether you have children or not, there is a place for the corn. Each child is given an ear of corn. So if you have one child, that is the vibunzi, one ear of corn. And if you have multiple children, then it's called a mihindi. That's the plural of that, right? And so it says that each ear symbolizes a child in the family. If there are no children in the home, 2 ears are still set on the mekeka because each person is responsible for the children of the community. During Kwanzaa, we take the love and the nurturance that was heaped on us as children and selflessly return it to all children, especially the helpless, homeless, and loveless ones in our community. We have good habits, so we try to establish good habits for self-respect and respect of others, discipline, positive thinking, expectations, compassion, empathy, charity, and self-direction. These are learned in childhood. We learn these things from our parents, our peers, and from our experiences. Children are essential to the celebration of Kwanzaa, for they are the future, the seed bearers that carry the cultural values and practices into the next generation. And for this reason, children are cared for communally and individually within a tribal village. Of course, the biological family is ultimately responsible for raising its own children, but every person in the village was responsible for the safety and welfare of all the children. And so today, the deck I'm going to present to you is it's not a children's deck per se, but there is something about the introduction and its imagery that allows one to open their minds, to go back into that place where you were a child and sit down and listen to the story and allow your imagination to take you to far off fantastical places. After all, isn't what that tarot should do? So the deck I'm going to present to you today is called Rodney's Illustrated Tarot. That is the box it comes in. And let me read to you a little bit about Rodney and perhaps the reason why I purchased this deck. Wayne Rodney is an American painter and illustrator born in the beautiful island of Jamaica. Number one, so I'm going to support my fellow countrymen, right? Rodney produces paintings and illustrations under the moniker Rodney Illustrations. The focus is on creating what he describes as an enigmatic, global fusion, intuitive artwork. The artwork is informed by traditional influences within contemporary sensibilities. In his book, and of course I had to purchase the guidebook, it does come with a little white book. It looks like that. But I needed to purchase I wanted more information, so I went out and splashed out for the larger guidebook. In his acknowledgments, he says, I express gratitude for the presence of the divine, which has guided my hand and inspired these works. The process of bringing this project to life has been a long and strenuous one, but ultimately worthwhile. Throughout this process, my greatest advocate and sounding board for these ideas have been my wife, Tricia. Thank you. And then he says, to my dear parents for their love encouragement, and support. I cannot thank you enough. And further down he says there are a few people who, even though they are not physically here to see the work upon its completion, deserve to be recognized. And he names off some people. And then he says, to my son Bryce, whose early and untimely departure from this earthly plane was the catalyst for this work, I send you my love. And to you, the reader, for choosing this deck and companion book, with the vast plethora of options available to any ardent student or casual reader of tarot, I fully understand the choice that you are making to explore the hidden worlds within these cards, and for that I am abundantly and eternally grateful. He says the development of this deck took a little over 10 years to complete, beginning as a series of paintings inspired by the major arcana in 2008. He says this work is for everyone, or at least anyone who dares. We like to think that most people have an innate desire to find their purpose and improve themselves. We believe that the study of the tarot can undoubtedly help where that's concerned. So he says, even if you're not interested in metaphysics, tarotology, or cartomancy, we still hope that you will find enjoyment perusing these pages on its artistic work. So this deck has a lot of imagery, has a lot of information within the artwork. So this is the back of the deck, back of the card. Oh dear. Let's get that out of the glare. As you can see, it's very busy, and I know many deck collectors, aesthetically, what you like and all of that. If it's really problematic, you can always cover over it. No problem. But I think the jewel is in the front of the cards. Now, this is the Fool card. And as you can see, there are many things going on the Fool card. And let me just read to you what he has here. He says, usually the Fool is the 0 or 22 in the major arcana. In this deck, the card is represented by both the 0 and the 22 because it symbolizes both the beginning and the end of the Fool's journey. The Fool is a seeker of truth. His dreadlocks are a symbol of his rebellious nature and the spirit of adventure that resides in him. A yearning prompts him to renounce the doldrums of conformity and to begin his quest for something more. Of course, he carries his earthly possessions in a calabash shell, and his animal spirit is by his side. And that is probably the alligator right there. I should get a pointer. Let's see. The dog simultaneously serves as both his guardian, alerting him to the crocodile or the danger of walking off the precipice, as well as his folly. Urging the adventurer to play and engage in frivolity instead of continuing his quest. We are all the fool at some time or the other until we remember what we have always known. Regardless of how much we accumulate or how much practical experiences we may have, there is still much to learn and understand. The fool remains a walking question mark, never fixed in his beliefs, continuously looking at the world with new eyes. And although he wanders dangerously close to the precipice, it is necessary for him to do so, for him to take the proverbial leap of faith and find the hidden temple within. Okay, so let's continue. We've got the Fool. We have the Magician. There's so much detail. I want to be sure that we're not in the place of glare. There we go. I could pause and read everything. There's so much detail in this guidebook, but I don't want to keep you guys long. I don't want to bore you. But there's just so much information here that takes reading the tarot to another level. I do appreciate this young man's artistic expression. I do appreciate this deck of his. Unfortunately, I have not read with it much, but I'm going to bring it out and start working with it in 2020. Um, it's the magician represents our ability to direct our destiny through the use of our free will. He presents us with four choices, tokens of the four suits of the minor arcana: a wand representing our creative will, a sword representing our intellect and reason, a chalice representing our emotions and intuition, and a large coin mounted on the wall behind him representing our material body and five physical senses. The magician does not gift us with these items because they are already in our possession. Instead, he shows us the path we must follow to become magicians and master our circumstances, selves, and environment. The bottles on the shelf are indicative of alchemy, and the swords pointing upwards and fingers pointing downwards represent the Hermetic principle of correspondences. Okay. High Priestess. The Empress. Emperor. Hierophant. Papist. They're your lovers. And the Chariot. I love this chariot. Spinning the wheels of steel. I love it. It's my strength card. Let's see. Reacting to a situation is secure. People typically find it difficult to step back from a circumstance to assess and make a sound decision. Impulsive, reckless behavior can lead to war and strife. Even more difficult is the ability to forgive ourselves and others of transgressions. The tiger in this card represents our animalistic behavior as well as the rage and impulsiveness that we should curtail to lead to harmonious lives. Despite the volatile nature of the tiger, the young woman can retain her composure as she sits atop the ferocious beast, giving us the impression that the volatile forces at work are within her control. And so it is for actual strength. There's a volcano in the background, that represents that fiery energy. And of course, we have all of this energy going on beneath the surface here. And she has it all under control. Okay. Our Hermit. Wheel of Fortune. Justice. Ma'at. Very Ma'at looking. The Hangman. Relax. Everything airy, as we would say in Jamaica. And just relax, everything cool. Death card. Temperance. Devil card. Tower. Our star. Interesting moon, yes. Sun. Judgment. And the world. Now, we move on to the four suits, and he has kept, for the most part, their playing card associations. He has in the guidebook, of course, a history of the tarot and its connection to playing cards, etc., all of that. So he starts out with the suit of sticks, what he calls, which will be the wands. And what he says here, the suit of sticks. The word stick has a simple yet almost magical ambiguity to it. A stick could potentially be used to build or to destroy. So in this deck, they represent the creative willpower, human enterprise, and industriousness, the potential for growth, and the ability to be shaped into whatever one wills. The suit demonstrates that there can be growth despite the current odds, the prevailing spirit of nature, and the will to harness creative forces for worldly success and survival. And he says here that, especially with this ace, okay, it shows the hand of the divine bestowing a gift of primordial fire to humanity. A mighty phoenix soars above the scene, brimming with regenerative power. This card signifies powerful creative drive and foretells success as issued by the divine decree. The fire nourishes vegetation surrounding the central tree, and that's what you see. That's what caught my attention. Go ahead and put that back there. The thriving foliage suggests adaptability, resilience, and vigor. The Ace of Sticks tells you to trust the urges of the fire within and allow your creative flame to grow. Whenever you act in alignment with this divine spark, you will thrive. Okay. I have to read you the Three of Wands, the Three of Sticks. An aspiring merchant pays homage to a totem at dawn before embarking upon his journey. He pays homage to a totem. He gives thanks. He carries 3 small sticks in his possession, which symbolize the creative zeal, exuberance, and optimism felt at the commencement of a new expedition. The merchant is greeted by birds singing songs of inspiration, while the lotus flowers blooming at the base of the totem signify divine providence. Four, the Five of Wands. 6, 8, 9, 10. Knave, which would be your page. Of course, your knight, your queen, and your king. Now we move on to cups. And if you notice on the cards, they still have, well, we have the symbol here for the aces and the playing card association down there. But he's kept the Arabic numbers on here. And you'll also find that on the majors. Let's see. The Three of Cups. I liked his description of the Three of Cups here. Let me tell you what he says. Cups are known as vessels. And he says about vessels that when we think of the human body, we typically use the word vessels, whether we are talking about our blood vessels or human bodies being vessels for the soul, or connotations of the word readily appropriate themselves with how the word relates to us on a physical, emotional, and spiritual levels. The water that these vessels contain alludes to the ever-changing emotional aspects of our being. On a metaphysical level, the water also corresponds to the astral plane. Consequently, some of the symbols of this suit refer to the projections of astral constructs that manifest from our volatile emotional states. What he says here about the Three of Vessels, or the Three of Cups, this moment is perfection. Celebrate it, savor it, and remember how it made you feel. Under the setting sun, a trio of young ladies celebrates a victory with each other. They represent the principle of manifestation, the law of three, and in this case, thought, will, and action. The girl on the left, with her hand on her chin, represents thought. The maiden in the middle, with her hand on her hip, symbolizes our will. And the third young lady on the right, who appears to be speaking, represents our actions. Their demeanor suggests that they are friends, and so it is with great success. It is through cooperation that we prevail, through sharing our joy with others that we can experience even greater pleasure. So, I like that idea of the Three of Cups. Your Fool, 5, 6, 7 of Cups, 8, 9, 10, Page, the Knight, Queen, and your King. As I said, there's a lot going on within these cards, but if you sit with them, you can see so much of the information here. Let's move on. Now we have the suit of blades. As opposed to swords, we have a suit of blades. And he calls this, he says about the suit of blades, the suit of blades signifies reason and logic in their purest form. When devoid of emotion and empathy, it has a propensity to instigate war and strife. While analysis, critical thinking, and rational judgment are valuable assets, overthinking, misguided thinking, ill-timed decision-making, underdeveloped ideas, or conclusions drawn by incomplete data or false information are ways in which we can misuse our intellect. The element, of course, air, governs this suit. Four swords. Five, six, 9. Anxiety and creating a place of protection, and yet you can attempt to protect yourself from your perceived worries and such, but you're still, even within your circle, your protective circle, you still have that anxiety with you. I often wonder many times, this is a subject for another time, when we talk about protecting ourselves, A, sometimes we have to exactly define what we are protecting ourselves from. You know, if it's cold outside, we put on a coat to protect ourselves from the cold. If it's raining, we put on galoshes. You know, if we're out in the sun, some of us may wear sunscreen. But when it's things of the mind, it's a matter of perception what we are protecting ourselves from. And sometimes I think that we can go overboard and end up not protecting ourselves at all, but instead creating more anxiety. Just something to think about. 10 of Wands. Oh, good grief. 10 of Blades. 10 of Swords. There's your knave or page. Knight. Your queen. And your king. And finally we have clubs or diamonds. And what he says about this, he calls them, actually it's not diamonds, this is a suit of gems. And he says, of course, gems represent the world of the mineral kingdom. When approaching this suit, I wanted to capture the gritty aspect of the pursuit of refining the individual. From an alchemical perspective, the beginning of the transmutative process starts with gross matter. I wanted to reflect that with the caves. The cavernous symbolism in this suit symbolizes the process of going within. I wanted to show people digging into the rock itself to find and extract the mineral and the subsequent refining and polishing of the human character, the personality, the habits and mannerisms that tend to dictate status and material success. The individual that has mastered the qualities of the gems is now capable of offering something of unique value, literally and figuratively. So, it's the work that you put in, working with that raw material, refining it, honing it to become something that you can use later on. The 5 of Gems. An apathetic and weary old vagrant lays down at the mouth of a cave. He is too immersed in his despair to realize that the gems are beckoning him to go inside. Trapped in the world of his depression, he remains in his lethargic state. The cave, which he's already in front of, contains the valuable gems which he could extract and use to make a better life for himself. Unfortunately, he has surrendered to his condition, unwilling to act on the sublime impulses of his intuition, which is telling him that there is a solution. he continues to languish in despair. The Five of Gems warns us not to avoid the process of going within ourselves. It tells us that we need to learn from the adverse situations that we may encounter. Although it is much easier to play the victim, we must hold ourselves accountable and be responsible for our fate. Quite often, there are solutions to our afflictions, albeit not always easy ones. Independence requires us to exert effort, evoking the will to pick ourselves up and begin again anew in the safest way to ensure our survival in difficult times. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of the deck. Now, in regards to Kwanzaa and the principle of Ujima, let's see the energy that we can tap into or should be aware of to help us become, I guess you could say, more compassionate and empathetic towards our fellow brothers and sisters. How we can, let's see, improve our problem solving skills. Again, how we can be more empathetic, we can reach out to others. I know when things are going on in the world, we tend to stay in our little square footage of the world. That's not my problem. That has nothing to do with me. I have my own thing going on and all of that. But we have to remember, collectively, the children of this world are all of our responsibilities. Many of us have endured a loss of a child. There are many of us who carry that around. We don't often share that. It's something that one never forgets, gets over. We try to process things as each day goes by. One of the things that really bothers me, though, is when I hear about the death of a child. A few months ago, there was a little girl who had gone missing, and several days after the search, her body was found in a dumpster. And it affected me so terribly that for 3 or 4 days, I was inconsolable. You would have thought that that was my child. You would have thought that I knew that family. I just felt the great loss that the world experienced, to have this bright, shining light extinguished by some very mean, evil, ugly, nasty people. And even now, when I think about the loss to humankind, I become affected emotionally. So what can we do as the human race to become a bit more empathetic towards one another, so that we can work on solving our problems together? So let's ask the Black Angel cards what we can tap into. I'm going to shuffle these again, and big cards, very big cards. Okay, and I am going to see and spread some out in front of you. They're already pre-shuffled, so let's see. The light shining on that one, so let's take that one. The Lover. Okay, that one came out too. The Builder. Okay. So we have the Builder. And we have the Lover. So the Lover's message is, you are feeling alive. You are feeling fully alive in your body and spirit. The Lover has an open heart. The nature of your love is not a thing projected out onto anything, but rather love is your nature. It is you. And I think that's part of the message we need to remember, that we are all, as cliche and woo-woo and whatever as it sounds, we are all love. We all have that ability to love. You hold life sacred. Your affection is highly respected for its tenderness and loving kindness. You honor every moment of life as a precious opportunity to experience the deep sensations of being fully alive. People often marvel at your ability to be passionate about things others would find mundane. Oh my goodness. On your waking path, love comes through you so abundantly and readily that people want to possess it in you. This warm feeling that you bring can often be misunderstood and misinterpreted as a sexual advance. People do not realize your sensuality is used to communicate what you are feeling, whether it's sadness, happiness, or needing attention. This can be confusing to people who cannot distinguish the difference between your desire for sex and the sensual, sensitive nature of the way you relate to people and the world around you. So, and that could be part of the reason why it's hard for us to engage other people, because we just feel like, oh, we might be judged for being too much, too out there, we might be taken the wrong way. So let's see what the Builder has to say. I don't want to rush, but I'm rushing. Okay. Let's see. You have an instinct for building your inner strength. You, Builder, strengthen us by helping us to see. You are seen as strong and reliable. You are committed, dedicated, and devoted to what you do. On this waking path, your spirit feels aligned with how you live. You are well with your innate instincts for seeing the cracks in the wall and fixing them. I feel like this is a very personal message right here. Not so personal that I'm not sharing it with you, but I feel like the message is for me. You help others see their weaknesses as strengths and vice versa. No one can hide from you. As a builder, you are aware of the internal battles going on inside of us in relationships to how we appear to others. You can be seen holding things together for everyone around you. You are someone who calls it and names the shadows. Even though you are working at softening the truth you have to share, your keen sensing often has an intense laser-like quality. I'm getting emotional here. Your impact on others is electrifying and can be deadly if someone is not ready for the information you can provide about their life. Since people gravitate toward you when they need strengthening, you can find yourself under a lot of weight holding folks and their problems. You can feel stressed by people placing their lives in your hands. You may feel a backlash from people who feel you can see their weaknesses and judge them. They may come down hard on you. Their vulnerability around you can make them defensive and move to a place of withdrawal. Okay. I need to pause a minute. There. Well, let's see. What can we use? What energy can we tap into? Boy, I don't even know what to ask. I feel like that message came across. I was asking the question, like, how can we be more empathetic and compassionate towards one another? The card just flew out. To continue to help us. Wow. I'm not even looking at Veronica's spreads. I should be, but I'm not. If you watched my Kwanzaa series last year, many of those spreads left me in a place of deep thought, very, very, very pensive, and greatly exposed to the general public because I did the spreads live. And, got a little boogie. I'm just going to pull a card. Let's see what we have here. You hear me shuffling. Let's take this one. Oh, look at that. The 8 of Gems. It is going to take work. It's going to take work. It's going to take some effort. It's going to take the desire to continue to hone our skills. That we're not to give up. That we can continue to do this. Let's see what Rodney has to say about the 8 of Gems. The lonely artisan has isolated himself in his workshop, toiling away on his project, while others have long since retired to their beds or are engaging in leisure. He focuses on the task at hand. This individual understands sacrifice. He works while others play to accomplish his objective. The 8 of Gems tells us that determination and drive are the qualities that we need when learning a new skill or overcoming a gargantuan task. The path that many of the great innovators, inventors, and pioneers of the past have trod is a path of solitude. This card represents our journey towards mastery. Keep going. We are closer than we may think. Oh, okay. Habari Gani. Habari Gani. Ujima. To build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and our sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. Peace and blessings. I will see you all tomorrow.